Paris, July 1891. In a crumbling townhouse on Rue Saint-Honoré, workers preparing for demolition broke through a wall of rotting timber. Behind it, in a hidden cellar, they claimed to have found a boy. No one could say his age. No one could say how long he had been there. But the records show one disturbing detail. He was alive. The first official mention of the case appears in the police report dated July 17, 1891, signed by Inspector Louis Delacroix. The handwriting is precise, formal, but the words betray unease. A minor was discovered in a bricked cellar of the abandoned house at number 246 Rue Saint-Honoré. Condition weak, yet conscious. Appears malnourished, but no signs of recent confinement. Identity unknown. What startled investigators was not merely his presence. It was the cellar itself. According to workmen, the chamber was completely sealed. Nailed beams, layered mortar, dust so thick it suggested decades without disturbance. No food, no water, no bedding. Just the boy. Witnesses described him as small in stature, no more than 140 centimeters tall, with limbs too thin to belong to a child of that height. His skin was chalk white, veins visible as though the flesh were transparent. His eyes were described as enormously dilated, unable to tolerate daylight. The newspapers quickly seized on the discovery. Le Petit Journal on July 19th wrote, "Found in the cellar of a forgotten house, a boy who speaks no tongue known to man. He murmurs in whispers, words untranslatable. Is he a victim or something else?" When the boy was brought to Hôpital de la Salpêtrière, the chief physician, Dr. Henri Vaillant, ordered immediate observation. Nurses wrapped him in sheets, afraid to touch his cold skin. In medical records, Dr. Vaillant noted, "Subject refuses food, but seems sustained by unknown means. His gaze follows shadows rather than light. Pulse irregular, sometimes absent upon examination, then returning suddenly, strong and rapid." One nurse later swore under oath that she saw the boy standing in the corner of the ward, though he had never left his bed. Interviews with locals added to the unease. A man named Madame Leroux, who had lived on Rue Saint-Honoré for over 40 years, told police, "That house, people said it was cursed, always shuttered, always silent. Once, when I was a girl, we heard a child crying there, but no one believed it. The owner died long ago. How could a child survive inside for so many years?" Her testimony was dismissed at the time, yet her words echoed in the margins of Delacroix's file, underlined twice, "Crying in the house," decades earlier. By the third night, staff at Salpêtrière began refusing to watch the boy alone. He was said to speak in whispers, never to them, but seemingly to the empty air. A young nurse, Claire Dumont, kept a diary. One entry survives.
"The boy does not sleep. He only sits upright, murmuring into the dark. I heard a second voice answer him, though there was no one in the room." Claire resigned a week later. She would never speak publicly about the case again. Doctors attempted to test the boy's cognition. They showed him books, cards with letters, children's toys. He ignored them. But when one attendant placed a Bible on his lap, the boy turned the pages slowly, though the text was upside down. His lips moved, whispering sounds no one could identify. A linguist from the Sorbonne, Professor Jules Renat, was summoned. He recorded phonetic notations of the boy's speech, describing it as a language without recognizable structure, yet disturbingly consistent, as though rehearsed for centuries. His report ends abruptly, mid-sentence. "I cannot continue. I fear what I hear is not human speech, but imitation of something older." Outside the hospital, rumors spread. The press printed lurid speculation. Was the child a feral survivor, a victim of occult confinement, or worse? One satirical paper ran a cartoon of the demon boy of Paris, depicting him with horns and hollow eyes. Yet some articles vanished within days of publication. Archives at the Bibliothèque Nationale showed torn, missing pages from July editions. The official explanation: paper deterioration. On July 23, the boy was placed under night watch. 2 guards reported strange phenomena: footsteps circling the bed, though the boy lay motionless; the sound of dripping water, though no pipes ran through the ward; the smell of damp earth filling the air. At dawn, Inspector Delacroix returned to question the child. His notes read only, "The boy looked at me. I felt an age that was not his, an age that was not mine, something older." Then came the first disappearance. A nurse assigned to the boy failed to report for duty. Her belongings remained in her quarters, her bed neatly made. When her colleagues searched, they found only a single shoe, damp with soil, in the corridor outside the cellar where the boy had once been discovered. The administration demanded silence, but whispers spread among staff that the boy had called her name and she had followed. A second doctor, Etienne Rousseau, insisted on conducting daily examinations. His surviving notes describe not only medical anomalies, but personal fear. Temperature impossible to measure. Body alternates between cold stone and burning fever within minutes. Pupils contract not at light, but at darkness. When I lean close, I hear another breath within his chest, like 2 lungs inhaling at once.
Dramatic, emotional, slow-paced, deep tone. Rousseau ended one entry with a chilling confession: "I am beginning to dream of him. In these dreams, he speaks clearly, though in words I cannot remember upon waking." By the end of July, the case was no longer merely medical. Police involvement deepened. A magistrate ordered the boy's transfer to a secure wing, citing disturbance of public order. But on the night of transfer, the boy vanished. His bed was found empty, the sheets untouched. Only the straps remained fastened, as though he had evaporated. In the storage room nearby, attendants discovered a bundle of cloth strips, damp, foul-smelling, stained with a substance resembling salt water. The hospital refused to release an official statement. Newspapers reported escape, but rumors grew darker. Some said the boy was reclaimed by those who had placed him in the cellar. Others claimed he returned underground. Inspector Delacroix's final report contains just 7 words. Subject removed. Further inquiry strongly discouraged.
In October 1891, Dr. Rousseau disappeared. His home ransacked, papers scattered. Among them, investigators found a final page of notes. The handwriting is unsteady, ink blurred. He waits not for us, but for them. They come through walls of stone, through soil, through years. He was never a boy. He was always the messenger. The document ends with a smear of ink, as if the pen was dragged violently across the page. Rousseau was never found. The case fell silent. Official records end abruptly, yet private collections contain fragments. A photograph of the cellar entrance, heavily damaged. A torn copy of Le Petit Journal with a headline, "The Child Beneath the City," and a diary entry by a nurse who fled Paris, claiming she still heard his voice in dreams. Decades later, in 1974, workers renovating the same block on Rue Saint-Honoré reported hearing a child's whisper from beneath the foundations. The police dismissed it as imagination, but construction halted for weeks, and no official reason was ever given. The building still stands. Its basement remains sealed. And some in Paris still claim, if you stand in the street at night near number 246 Rue Saint-Honoré, you will hear the faintest murmur in a language you will not understand, a whisper waiting for an answer. For years after the disappearance, silence hung over the case. The official files at the Préfecture de Police contained only clipped references, deliberately vague, as minor lost to circumstances beyond inquiry.
Yet, in private, whispers grew louder. Former staff of the Salpêtrière avoided mention of the boy, but when pressed, they confessed fragments. One orderly, interviewed decades later, recalled, "He did not walk like a child. He did not breathe like a child. The sound he made, it was like the voice of the earth itself, low and distant. Sometimes I think he was not speaking at all, but that something spoke through him." Rumors of occult societies in Paris fed the legend. The 1890s had been ripe with interest in spiritualism, seances, and hidden brotherhoods. Some claimed the boy had been entombed by a forgotten sect that sought to preserve a voice older than humanity itself. Others insisted he was no boy at all, but an echo, something left behind when the house was sealed. A fragmentary letter attributed to Professor Renan of the Sorbonne surfaced in a private collection in 1902. It reads, "The utterances continue in my dreams. I cannot escape them. They are not words, but pressures upon the mind, like the weight of a stone pressing from within. I fear the child was not an accident of confinement. He was a vessel." The letter ends abruptly with the words, "I must burn the papers." No more was heard of Renan thereafter. In the archives of Le Figaro, one discovers a curious anomaly. The July 1891 editions were reprinted in September, but the articles regarding Rue Saint-Honoré are missing. The reason given was typesetting error. Yet other topics of less importance remained intact. Some whispered that the boy had been removed not only from the hospital, but from the record of Paris itself. Yet such erasures never succeed completely. By 1908, tales of the cellar child had drifted into Parisian folklore. Street singers mentioned him in half-forgotten ballads. Children dared each other to approach the condemned house. Some claimed to hear knocks beneath the pavement at night.
Inspector Delacroix retired in 1895. In his private notes, found after his death, he confessed that the case had haunted him more than any murder. "I could have accepted neglect, cruelty, madness, but not this." The house was sealed long before his birth, yet there he was. If he was never born, then what did we see? What did we touch? Delacroix's handwriting falters on the final page. His last line, "There are children beneath the city, and they are waiting." The following decades buried the affair beneath layers of dust and denial. The house on Rue Saint-Honoré was sold, abandoned, sold again. Tenants refused to stay long. Reports from
Dramatic, emotional, slow-paced, deep tone. Neighbors mention strange odors seeping from the foundations and faint vibrations through the walls, as if something beneath shifted restlessly in the soil. By 1921, the property was purchased by a textile merchant who attempted renovations. Workers quit within weeks. One laborer left a statement preserved only because it was notarized in a wage dispute. "We broke the stone of the lower cellar. Inside was not a room, but a tunnel, descending. The walls were wet, breathing, and we heard a child crying. We sealed it again and left." No official record of the tunnel exists. The merchant never spoke of it. He abandoned the project, and the building once again fell into decay. In 1933, during municipal inspections, the house was marked for demolition. Yet a sudden fire destroyed only the upper floors, leaving the basement untouched. Witnesses swore the smoke had risen from below, not from the burning roof. The inspector's report concludes, almost apologetically, "Demolition postponed, basement unsafe to enter." The war years eclipsed all memory of the boy. Paris faced occupation, hunger, resistance. But afterward, in 1947, a rumor circulated among students of the École des Beaux-Arts. A photographer had entered the ruins and captured an image of a pale figure crouched in the cellar doorway. The print was allegedly confiscated by police. No copy has surfaced, but several who claimed to see it described the same detail: the figure's eyes reflecting light, though the photograph was taken in total darkness. Throughout the 1960s, the area around Rue Saint-Honoré modernized. Buildings rose, facades gleamed, yet number 246 remained, stubborn and silent, its windows bricked, its doors sealed with iron plates. City officials insisted it would be redeveloped in due time. No such redevelopment occurred. Then came 1974. Renovation crews returned, tasked with reinforcing the street foundations for new utilities. When drills pierced the earth near number 246, workers reported hearing voices through the stone. At first, laughter, then weeping, then a murmur in unrecognizable syllables. One foreman, interviewed anonymously years later, swore the sound was not from the ground, it was from beneath the ground, like something pressed against it, whispering upward. The work halted without explanation, the project diverted.
To this day, no cables or pipes run directly under that section of Rue Saint-Honoré. By the late 20th century, the legend of the cellar boy had become a cautionary tale whispered by Parisian parents to frighten children into obedience. But among archivists, collectors, and the few who dared to trace its threads, the story remained darker than folklore. In 1987, a private researcher named Elaine Morel claimed to have obtained fragments of a hospital ledger from Salpêtrière, previously thought destroyed. The entries matched July 1891, and one line bore the unmistakable hand of Dr. Henri Vaillant. The child does not eat. The child does not age. His presence distorts the air around him. He looks at us not as a boy looks at men, but as a man looks at insects. The ledger vanished shortly after Morel announced his find. His apartment was burgled. Only papers and tapes were stolen. He left Paris and never returned. In 1993, during repairs after flooding, maintenance workers beneath Rue Saint-Honoré reported finding bricked passages connected to older foundations. One of them described carvings on the stone, marks resembling crude faces without eyes or mouths. His partner refused to corroborate the account, but quit the same week. City officials denied any such discovery. The passages were resealed. And yet, testimonies continue. In 2004, a night security guard claimed he heard footsteps pacing within the boarded structure of number 246. Police investigated. They found no intruder, but their written report contains a curious addendum. Quote, "Officers noted a pervasive odor of damp earth, though all ground floors were dry." End quote. In 2010, an amateur historian obtained microfilms of Le Petit Journal from July 1891. Several frames appeared warped, distorted, as if the photographed pages bent in unnatural ways. On one, the headline, "The Child Beneath the City," is visible, but the rest of the article is smudged, unreadable. Archivists dismissed it as film degradation. The house itself remains. Today, its facade is obscured by neighboring structures, its windows blind, its door chained. Tourists rarely notice it. Locals pass quickly, seldom speaking of it. But sometimes, in the quiet hours of early morning, those who live nearby claim they hear a voice, faint, insistent, speaking in no known language. "It is not a scream," one resident said. "It is a whisper, like a child repeating the same words, over and over, waiting for someone to answer." Number 246 Rue Saint-Honoré is absent from most modern maps. The city registers list it as non-existent property, yet anyone who walks the street may still see the chained door, the bricked windows, the cracks in the wall, as though something beneath still shifts against the stone.
And so the question remains, who was the boy in the cellar? A forgotten child sealed away by cruelty? A vessel of some ancient voice? Or simply the invention of frightened witnesses and missing records? No answer is certain. The documents end. The testimonies blur. But the silence around the case speaks louder than any explanation. And perhaps the most unsettling detail of all is this. In 2019, a resident of Rue Saint-Honoré submitted a complaint to the city about unlicensed works in the basement of the abandoned house.
The complaint was archived, but the follow-up investigation is missing. Only the timestamp remains. 03:17 a.m., April 12, 2019. The same hour at which in 1891 Inspector Delacroix first recorded the words, "The boy looked at me."